Hello everybody, I am here to show you a build that I made for a tanking paladin for unfair difficulty uh, for Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous. As you can see, it is on unfair difficulty, and I'll go ahead and show you my character. And the primary reason why I made this is there doesn't seem to be many, basically many builds uh, for an angel character for tanking in terms of the MC. A lot of it has to, built off of around either like lich or demon and whatnot. Nothing actually for the good side. So I decided to do a little something here, and this is more of a proof of concept and kind of a template as well. You could actually make some changes. If you want to, like for instance, I went with sword and shield because I find it to be the best in terms of what I want to achieve, and and I like Sword and Shield too, so so that's a little bit of a bias there, and actually, and having 7 attacks before any kind of buffs is quite stupendous, and when fully buffed, I get a full 9 attacks per round, which is absolutely amazing. Um, and right here, as you can see in the my character sheet, you'll see the combat stats, which is actually quite good. And where I am right now, it's actually right before the final battle. So be the best place to actually test it, so I can show you guys, what's going on. Um, and as you see, you got a 22 damage reduction on base as well, with immunity to cold and fire and a lot of really good resistances. These elemental resistances actually comes from the Angel's Halo, which Solar Winds. So as you can see here, it gives 50 resistances to the elements, elemental energies, and then a smaller amount to the other lesser energies. But you still get a very solid resistance range, so it makes you very tanky, and the damage reduction doesn't help. As you can see here too, the characters that I chose is for primary leveling was Stalwart Defender, mostly because it gives a lot of AC bonuses passively, as well as damage reduction. Divine Guardian to make use of Paladin passives as well as Smite Evil. Fighter to get also its passives and a few perks from fighters as well. And only one dip into cross-blooded, so that I could actually have access to Bloodlines. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys right over here. Actually, it's not biography. In case you're wondering why there's nothing here, it's because I use a scroll of alignment to fix my alignment. But anyways, this was my progression. Um, so getting the divine weapon bond was the reason why I went to level 5, because it's very useful to get the extra abilities off of that. Especially when you're higher levels, it lasts quite a bit longer. So having only one usage is not too bad. And going to fighter level 5 was actually completely pointless because you don't need weapons training. Um, and uh, and yeah, that's the reason why I went with this route. And I'm probably not gonna get too in depth as to how I progressed through the skill line, but I chose these things mostly just to benefit my tanking as well as my dual wielding for my feats. As you can see here, not only is my character immune to specific energies, he's also immune to sickened and nauseated conditions, fearless defense, and immune to frightened and shaken conditions. And then, as you can see here, we got 5 different levels of damage reduction, as well as 3 different levels of uncanny dodge. And in a pinch, you can always use defensive stance, which boosts your stats quite drastically. Only problem is you actually can't move, so make sure you're in a fight where you can't move, where you don't need to move. Um, And yeah, and the last one I just picked Smash just to round up my attacks. As you can see, also additional AC bonuses towards the end of level 10. So you definitely want to go to level 10 at least for this build. Um, and the Bloodlines and the Sorcerer Crossblood, none of it really matters. But I chose combat casting just because you will have spells that you want to cast, and anything else is kind of useless off of the first level of Sorcerer because you don't need anything else from there. And the Bloodlines I chose is Fire and Undead. Undead gives an additional 5 damage reduction to all types of physical attacks. Also makes you immune to paralysis and sleep as well on top of the code. And Fire Bloodline, it gives you immunities to sneak attacks, criticals, and fire damage. So with that, it just makes you super tanky, especially when you got hard to kill as well. So so you could actually stay alive long enough to actually heal yourself, which I'll show you in a fight against a really strong mythic enemy, where it keeps you alive long enough to actually heal yourself and take out the enemy. Wings is the wings ability is I found it quite useful, mostly because it gives you an additional 3 AC, as well as immunity to ground attacks. So any kind of like ground terrain affecting magics and whatnot, you will completely ignore because you're technically flying, which is absolutely amazing. I just chose whichever background uh, fits the type of weapon that I want to use. So you use that however you want. And I chose swords just because I really like swords. And the sword I'm using is Elder Flaming Longsword +5, which is absolutely amazing weapon. I don't remember where I found it, but it is very good. Best longsword in the game, as far as I know. There might be something better. If you know something better, let me know. And yeah, shield I'm using is the spike that is actually that's not the actual shield. So this is the shield I'm using, Undying Love of the Hopebringer. Again, I don't remember where I got this, but it's a very amazing shield. It gives you additional attack power because even though it's not classified as a heavy shield, as a spike shield, but it acts like one. But the another thing too is not only is a +5 shield, it also gives you 3 different spells that you can use. Light Aura. Hold on, let me go ahead and show you here. Um, so Light Aura, Dark Aura, and Light Nova. Light Nova is it's only a 1 use per day type of spell. The attack one, Light Nova, it's not very useful because just 1 use a day. It's kind of crappy, and it doesn't, and the effect is not all that great. So I mean, as far as as far as anything goes, Light Aura and Dark Aura is the best ones. I use Light Aura more, mostly because it increases your survivability, but Dark Aura does have its uses. Yeah. Anything else I wear is basically just to supplement my path. But yeah, if you ever want to go back, and I'm not gonna go too in depth. I don't want to make this video too long about my progression and whatnot. You could just go ahead and take a screenshot or pause it and take a look at what I did, and what skills I chose and whatnot. Feel free to. But basically 5 levels of Divine Guardian, 10 levels of Stalwart Defender, and 4 levels of Fighter, and 1 dip into Cross-Blooded Sorcerer. Okay, and this was my stat spread. It was actually, yeah. So yeah. Oh yeah, and it is Asimar with Angelic Bloodline, just so I could get the +2 to Strength and +2 to Charisma, but I did remove the Charisma down and gave it to Constitution. because it started with 20 strength and 18 um, no 16 dex and 14 con, and everything else I just minimized. This was 9 whiz, but I had one extra point at the end and I didn't know what to throw it in, so I just tossed it onto whiz just to round it up to 10. Since paladins don't really use intelligence. But I'll go ahead and show you this right here. I've already came into a random battle with some enemies towards the end of the game. So I'm gonna go ahead and buff myself up. And these are all angel buffs. So
defeat is not an option.
oops, I forgot to give my weapon buff on. The reason why I'm
not hold back. Strike as one.
But as you can tell, they didn't hurt me at all, and I just absolutely destroyed them. So, Sword of Heaven is absolutely amazing, and I'm going to show that to you as well. So, as you can tell, I no longer have those level negations. The icon for the loss of levels is no longer there. Because I turned it on, because the effects that I chose for my sword, from the mythic path. So Abolish Undeath was the first one I chose, because it had the most useful effect out the gate that you could use right away, which is immune to all death effects and energy drain when you have the sword on. So that is absolutely amazing, and 50% damage to any kind of undead is, it's a perk, even though there's not as many undeads in this game as demons. Everlasting Flame to make your buff last longer, 1 minute per mythic rank. Speed of Light is great. It pretty much gives you a 10-minute haste at max level, which is amazing. Guide of the Faithful is very useful. Make you far more accurate, and because, as you know, missing in this game is a pain in the butt. And as you can tell, this is just a visual bug, but over here is the Bloodline One of Us, which gives me the flat DR5 to all melee damage, as well as the the immunities to code, and paralysis, and I forgot the last one, but I don't know, it's a visual bug. For whatever reason, when I picked Elemental Body to get my second immunities, it changed this icon to this, but it still works, as you saw on my martial stats. See, I still have the immunities, and no enemy can crit me. I've tested out on harder enemies that can crit, like, very frequently, and they don't crit me at all. So I can confirm that this does work, because you can see it here as well. And as you can see, fully buffed, absolutely amazing attack stats, and really good 50 AC, and and what I'm gonna here is I'm actually gonna spawn some mythic enemies, and I use and honestly, I recommend you guys actually, while this thing is actually loading up, install Toybox. Toybox is, you can use it for cheating. I don't. I use it just to get, the original reason why I got this was because I got stuck on a quest, and because it was a bug and I could not get past it at all, and so I downloaded it just so that I could get through it. and it got me through it. And then I just started messing around with the crazy options that they have, and it's a very good tool for testing out builds and stuff like that. And that's what I use to test out my builds, which makes it like super easy to play around with. Um, but anywho's, let's go ahead and first let me buff here real quick. Oh yeah, I do not need holy damage, but I want keen because my sword already has holy and fire, so all I need is keen. But yeah, so let's go ahead and let me just real quick. All right, and let me go ahead and start summoning these mythic enemies, and you can see how well they do. I'll start with an easy one and work my way down to a more difficult one, and you'll see how he acts solo when you would probably want a party to fight them. But let's go ahead and start. And Smite Evo is great, by the way. It removes these damage reduction off of enemies, and you know every enemy has damage reduction in this game, except for humans. But let's go ahead. Oh yeah, forgot to summon. Spawn. There you go.
We will prevail.
Alright. And also one of my auras, it gives me a passive healing of 1 HP per mythic rank per like tick. So I'm constantly passively healing, which is awesome. But yeah, as you can tell, that Babu dropped like a bag of shit. Let's go ahead and spawn that Incubus, mythic.
Attack!
Dead in, seconds, really. Wait, is he still? Oh yeah, he is. I forgot they always come back. There we go. And then let's go ahead and, mythic seconds. As you can tell, pretty much. And yeah, it's just ridiculous as to how powerful my character is with this build. And well, I think we're tired of seeing these easy fights. So let's go ahead and pull out something really hard. And this thing is more than likely gonna drop my HP down to 0. But that's the good thing about the mythic ability, hard to kill, which you get naturally. I believe that's just a natural skill you get. From Mythic Hero 2, so you don't have, but tanks make the best use of it. But let's go ahead and spawn this big guy.
We shall overcome.
All right, so I'm just gonna.
Contemplate on your mistakes.
And down. And there we go. And there's my proof of concept for my character. Again, I'm gonna show you guys. This was indeed on unfair difficulty. Boom. And yeah, this character is just an absolute monster. And if you want to see the character sheet again, this is based, I think this one shows more of like what it looks like in actual combat. And here's the class progression again. If you want to pause and take a look at what I did as I went along. Um, and here's my mythic path. And the reason why I picked Abundant Smite, and is because only had like one uses. Only had one use because I only went to level 5 as a Paladin Divine um, uh, Guardian. So with Abundant Smite, it gives me like 5 additional uses at level 10, which makes it much more useful because removing that DR for hard enemies is very worth it, especially if you don't have another Paladin on your team. Um, but yeah, there's a couple of things that you could always change that you want to suit yourself better. But it's mostly just the path that you take that actually affects it from my testing. So take from it what you will. You could change your weapon, and if you want to mix things up and see if what works just as well and whatnot. You know Go ahead, right? Because we bouncing off ideas to each other is always a good thing. um, but yeah, then this is if you guys want to make an angel that is like a knight, and for the side of good, I think this is a very good route to take, because there's really, sadly enough, there's not a lot of builds out there for paladins, let alone good characters. There's a lot of Evo characters and neutral characters, but not a lot of good characters. So I hope this helps. And thank you if you stayed to the end. Thank you for watching, and if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment. But you take care and have a good one. Bye now.